All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So obviously there's some traffic issues outside, so just be patient with people kind of filtering in. If it does start to get crowded, maybe just try to move towards the middle, let people come in as they need to. So, all right, well, my name is Nick Niehaus. I'm with Connect Marketing, and today we're going to be talking about Facebook marketing for small businesses. My specialty has kind of developed into video marketing in particular, and video is kind of the future of Facebook. So we are going to focus primarily on video marketing, but if you're not ready to do video, there's going to be a ton of stuff that's still going to be very useful for you today. All right. One thing I do want to mention before we start is you're going to notice there's a guy with a camera up here kind of walking around. For the sake of the presentation, you can ignore him, but this is Michael Glazer, one of my favorite videographers. He's absolutely awesome. Obviously, we use him for our stuff. We're going to be teaching you a little bit about how to make your own videos using your cell phone today, but if you need somebody to help you with professional video, Michael's definitely your guy. One of my favorite things about him is that he actually studied acting in college, so he's really, really good at helping you create scripts. A lot of stuff he makes is absolutely hysterical. It's very funny, and he can help you do that too. So if you need some professional help, definitely talk to Michael after the presentation. So I'm going to start by just telling you a little bit about my background, kind of the reasons why you might have an interest in listening to me today. So like I said, my name is Nick Niehaus. I'm a St. Louis native, born and raised here in St. Louis, except for about 5 months where I lived in Switzerland when I was in 3rd grade because my dad worked over there for a summer. I went to St. Louis University High School and then Washington University here in St. Louis. And when I was a freshman, I did an internship with a company called College Works Painting. So the idea there was that I ran a small painting company for a spring and summer, did about $60,000 in revenue, and then I ended up getting promoted, and I stayed there for 6 years. So that's where kind of my marketing experience started. I was the vice president of marketing and sales for the St. Louis area for those 2 years right after I graduated from WashU. Since then, I've started 2 businesses. The first one I started was called Case Cooley. It's now shuttered, but it was a product I invented. It was a sleeve that kept a cold 30-pack of beer cold for 10 hours without ice. So you basically just slip this thing around a case of beer and it stayed cold for a while. That was obviously a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I never really figured out how to market and promote it properly, and we didn't sell quite enough of them. And that's actually part of why I started Connect Marketing, was because I saw a problem in my previous business that I wanted to solve, and that was how to help really small businesses market really effectively without a huge budget, right? So that's kind of what we started to specialize in. So 4 years ago, I started Connect Marketing. My business partner is in the back corner there. Her name's Vanessa Lobo. I want to wave real quick. So she and I have been building Connect Marketing for, like I said, a little over 4 years. And our specialty now is real estate marketing. So we're really good at working with real estate agents to make them what we call local famous. So we do things for them that make them really popular in specific parts of town, and then they're not wasting their money advertising to people all over St. Louis, right? So that's kind of one of our specialties, and we do a lot of video marketing to accomplish that. So I want to go over the agenda for today. I'm going to try to give everybody a little kind of 3-4 minute break right around 1 o'clock so that I can use the bathroom. Has nothing to do with you, honestly, but I'll give you a quick break. We're going to try to keep that short, though, since we started a little bit late today. So the first thing I want to do is just do a quick overview of Facebook, make sure everybody knows how Facebook works, what it's all about, why it might be a good use for your business. And then the second thing is to talk about how to make engaging video. So the video stuff is going to be obviously applicable to you if you're thinking about doing video. But even if you're not doing video, a lot of the rules there apply to other kinds of content. So if you're going to write a blog post, if you're going to create some graphics or something like that, you can use some of those same rules. And then kind of the key part of the demonstration today is I would like to show you how to use the Facebook's Ads Manager to actually create advertisements on Facebook, and then show you how to put those in front of your target audience. So we'll do a little bit of a demonstration to show you how to actually use those tools. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. This is the first part, which is our overview of Facebook. So the first thing I want to ask, and hopefully today we can be kind of interactive. I'll have a few questions, and feel free if you have a question as I'm speaking to raise your hand, and I'll try to answer it as we go. But the first question I have for the group is, how many of you already have a Facebook business page? So you've set up a business page for your business. Okay, so we're looking at least 50%. So I do want to point out that to do the advertising I'm going to be talking about today, you do have to have a Facebook business page. So I'm not going to go into how to set those up today. There are plenty of instructions online. It just takes about 5 clicks and you can have a page set up. But you will not actually see the Ads Manager unless you have a business page. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do that before you do any of this other stuff. So I want to start by talking about, why is Facebook so crucial right now? Why is it such a big opportunity, especially for small businesses? And I think this first chart does a great job of just representing how many people are actually on Facebook. So Facebook has over 2 billion monthly active users now. There's about 7.5 billion people in the world. So that's a big chunk of the total internet users in the entire world are on Facebook. And monthly active means that they're on there at least once a month. Most people are on there more often than that, but at a minimum 2 billion people are on Facebook at least once a month. The second one up there is Instagram. Instagram's the second largest social media platform in the world. And who owns Instagram? Does anybody know? Facebook owns Instagram, right? So that means that Facebook owns the top 2 social media platforms in the entire world. In addition to this, they also own Messenger, which is the Facebook Messenger they rolled out as its own app. That has over 1 billion users. And WhatsApp, which is another messaging app, which I think has around 1 billion users now, right? So Facebook is very dominant in this area. We aren't going to be talking about YouTube today, but obviously when you're doing video advertising, YouTube is also very powerful. So I'm not arguing that Facebook's bigger than YouTube. They're about the same, or actually YouTube's maybe even a little bigger still. But Facebook is catching up on the video side of things. And in terms of where people spend their time interacting with each other, and therefore interacting with a lot of businesses, there's a lot of people doing that on Facebook, right? So that's the first thing I wanted to go over. A couple other points about Facebook. So of the people, this is based, these numbers here, I think, do I have a, there we go. All right, these 2 numbers right there. So 75% of men and 83% of, and I think this is just internet users, so of all the people in the United States who use the internet at all, there's not many people left that don't, right? So this is most people in the US. 75%, 3 out of 4 men use Facebook, and 83% of women. So this is one of the few platforms where you can get in front of that many of the people out there, right? So that's very powerful, obviously. A couple other things to mention. The average user spends 50 minutes per day on Facebook's properties. So combining Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp and the Messenger app, they're spending 50 minutes, almost an hour every single day. And that number has been steadily going up over time. A big reason for that, which we'll talk about later, is that Facebook is starting to take over the time we used to spend watching the TV. It used to be we'd spend on average like over 2 hours a day watching television. A lot of that time is being shifted into Facebook, like you can see there. All right, and then down at the bottom here, you'll see that there's 214 million US users. So obviously the large majority of people in the United States are using Facebook. And the final point on this slide is if you look over here, this is 65 and up. And then this lower one is 18 to 29. A lot of people have always thought of Facebook as a youth platform. It's where the millennials hang out. That's actually becoming less true, and more of the older people are starting to join. So now you'll actually see the average user on Facebook is more in this 30 to 60 kind of range, right? So that's why, those are the people who have the money. That's what Facebook's been trying to do, is get the older folks that actually have some money, not the millennials. All us millennials are broke. That's what they always tell us, right? So you want to have the people that have the money, and that's who is getting on Facebook at this point. So there's a couple trends I want to mention, things to keep an eye on, especially moving into 2018. The first is that Facebook is trying to become a competitor to traditional television, right? So we spent, like I said, over 2 hours a day watching television, and Facebook and Google are basically competing for the money that advertisers were spending to show us commercials. Right? So how many people record television and then skip the commercials when they watch it later? Or you watch on demand, or how many people use streaming apps, right? So there's a lot of that starting to happen now, and that means that television commercials are a lot less effective than they used to be. You can imagine, even if you watch live TV, a lot of people when the commercials start, they pull out their phone, right? So they're actually looking at their phone while the commercials are playing. And the big players in the industry are starting to recognize that. So these advertisers, which are spending totals of over $100 billion a year on television, they're starting to realize those ads aren't working as well anymore. And Facebook is really trying to grab a lot of that money. So you may have noticed Facebook's actually starting to make their own TV series. So there are now streaming episodes. So the one I saw recently was the Ball family, like the basketball players, their last name of Ball, they have their own television show, and that's on Facebook now, right? So Facebook is making a big push in this direction, and the reason you want to watch this is because this is going to tell you what user behavior is going to look like in the future. So even if right now you're one of those people that's going, I don't watch a lot of video on Facebook, I don't get it, that's not going to last much longer because Facebook is pushing us towards video. So it's estimated that within a year or two, almost every post you see on Facebook will be some kind of video. And you've probably noticed that those have started to pop up quite a lot more recently. And they're investing billions of dollars into this. So they're going to be creating a lot of television shows, and eventually you're going to see commercials probably during those shows because that's how Facebook makes money. So we want to work with that trend, and we want to start trying to make more video content because as people get used to watching video on Facebook, if we're putting our video in front of them, that's going to work out for us. The second thing is that organic posting has a lower and lower reach every single year. So what is organic posting? Does anybody know what that term means? Yeah.
Means they find it just because it's in their thread.
Correct. So organic posting is not paid for, right? That's the big difference. So anything you've ever posted on Facebook, unless you paid to boost it or you paid to advertise it, was what's called organic. And obviously the other stuff is called paid, right? So organic posting has been showing up to less and less people over time. So when you first got on Facebook, 10 years ago in my case, right? Every single thing my friends posted and every single thing a business page that I was following posted would get thrown into my news feed. And I don't know if you remember this, but you could just scroll and scroll forever and ever. Some of it was interesting, some of it was absolutely stupid. You didn't want to see it. And Facebook was like, all right, we want to do something to improve that user experience and behind the scenes make more money, which is my theory. I think a lot of people agree on that. So what they did is they said, hey, we're going to filter all of your posts. We're not going to show you every single thing that everybody posts. We're going to take some guesses. We're going to use an algorithm, and we're going to try to figure out what you're going to like the most, and then we're going to show you just that stuff. So this is what, this has ultimately resulted in this idea of like a filter bubble. So you only see the things on Facebook that you already like. So that, you can debate the usefulness of that. But what that means from an advertising perspective is that everything you post on your business page, only about 2 to 4% of the people who liked that page are going to see it, right? So as an example, a lot of small businesses have, 100 or maybe 500 likes on their page. If you only have 100 likes on your page, only 2 to 4 people are seeing everything you post, right? That's not very good. That's pretty low. And this number has just been going further and further down. And on the other side, companies have been paying more and more money to show their ads, right? That's why a lot of people say they really did this so they could try to get more advertising dollars, right? But you have to keep an eye on this because this number is getting closer and closer to zero. And they actually did an experiment in some countries over in Europe where they took all the business posts and they put them in a different news feed. So now anything your business posted showed up in a separate news feed where somebody had to go over and click on that to look at it, and these numbers dropped by another 60%. So a lot of those businesses were getting like 1% and even lower reach, right? So that's not very good. So I don't know if it's going to go all the way to zero. I don't know if Facebook will ever get to the point where they make you pay to show anything. That probably won't happen because that's not necessarily in their best interest if you're making interesting stuff. But it's going lower and lower over time. Oh, sorry about that. And so what that means is you have to be conscious about making sure that you're providing very valuable content on your business page, and you also want to be considering starting to spend some money to actually promote your posts. All right, so a couple things that you can take away from that is you have to be original. So the day and age of just sharing other people's stuff, finding a cool infographic and resharing it, that is basically going away. And you're moving into a day and age where you need to be making your own content, right? So we're going to focus on that a little bit later today, giving you some tips on how to do that, how to make the most of your content. But you want to be selective and strategic, which those are kind of meaningless words, I know. But the point there is that you want to be really smart about the kinds of things you create and share, especially on your business page. So if you're using like automated tools that are just kind of finding random things and posting them, or if you're scheduling things, months in advance, that's okay, but you probably want to think about being a little bit smarter and starting to make your own content. So we're going to talk about how to make video today, but that content could be blog posts. A really popular thing now is podcasting. So you could be podcasting and putting that out there. You could be making graphic content. So if you're a good graphic designer and you want to make an infographic, things like that. But it's going to go a lot further, and Facebook's going to show it to a lot more people if it was something that you made and you didn't just find and share. So keep that in mind. And then the second thing, and I'm a big proponent of this, is creating video. So if you can incorporate video into your posting and you're making your own video content, Facebook shares that substantially more. And I'm going to switch over to some stats here. Facebook knows that we want to see video now, and so they're actually promoting it quite a bit more. So another thing I will note, I don't think the stats on here, but a video gets 1,200% more engagement than a traditional post. So if you have a post that would have gotten 1 like and you turn it into a video, it will get 12. And what that means is that more people will see it. The more people that like your post, the more people Facebook shows it to. So that kind of explains why video is so effective right now. So a couple stats, and these numbers are only going up. These are all kind of upward trends. 55% of people watch videos online every single day. If you look at millennials, that number is close to 100%. 2/3 of consumers prefer videos under 60 seconds. Yeah.
So are you saying that even if you post something yourself, isn't just you get a lot of likes because your friends like it, you actually see it more often?
Correct. Yeah. So for instance, if you make a video out of something,
Just even a post.
Yeah, any post, if it gets engagement, if it gets engagement, Facebook. Think of it this way: Facebook wants to show people things that they're going to guess they're going to be interested in.
Okay.
So it looks at who liked it, right? And it says who was that person? What are some traits of that person? And then it shows it to more people that are like that person, right? So if it's all women that like it, a lot more women will see it. If it's all men, a lot more men will see it, right? Because their theory is, I want to just put stuff in front of you that I already know you're going to like, and then we'll spend more time on Facebook, right? So there's a debate about is that a good thing or not, because it's kind of an addiction mechanism. They're basically trying to make us all addicted to Facebook. But for their standpoint, they make more money, and that's just kind of how things work. So that's how the engagement thing works. I'll also say this: comments and shares are more important than likes. So if someone comments on your post, there's estimates that that's worth 3 or 4 times as much as a like, because that's a bigger engagement. And then if they share it, that's a really big deal, right? Because if they share it, their friends will see it, and then Facebook goes, well, if they shared this, it must be good. I'm going to show it to even more people. So I have a video that I think is in this presentation. I'll show you later that I shared on my personal page and my business page. I have about 900 combined connections on those two, and 2,500 people actually ended up seeing it. So these are people that they weren't even my friends. It did so well that Facebook said, I'm going to show this to even more people that they don't even know who I am, right? So that's kind of, I wouldn't say that that's a viral video because it's only 2,500, right? But that's how viral mechanisms work, is that if enough people engage, it just keeps showing it to more people. And that's how you'll see these videos that end up getting millions of views, right? So back to this point about 60 seconds, this is important to keep in mind. You do, especially when you're first starting out, want to try to keep your video content under 60 seconds. There's a couple significant reasons. The first is that we don't have a lot of attention span anymore. I think you've probably heard that the average attention span is actually shorter than a goldfish. It's like 6 seconds now or something absolutely ridiculous. So it's really easy for us to get distracted. So we don't want to put a 10-minute video in front of somebody who's never seen us before, right? That's intimidating. I don't have 10 minutes to watch it. I'm just going to skip it in a lot of cases. If you keep it under 60 seconds, there's a chance somebody will give you 60 seconds of their time. Now, after they've seen a few videos, they might be willing to spend more time watching it because now they've seen you, they recognize you, they're more interested. But I would always start with 60. The second reason to do 60-minute or shorter, or 60-second or shorter videos is that those will work on Instagram as well. So Instagram has a rule that videos can't be longer than 60 seconds. So if you do a nice short one, you can also put it on Instagram and get it in front of more people. This one is pretty crucial as well. 85% of video on Facebook is watched without the sound turned on, which means you really want to have subtitles. There is a feature on Facebook where they will automatically generate subtitles for your video. Please make sure you use that every single time, because otherwise 85% of people that might have watched the video have no idea what you're saying, right? So make sure you keep that in mind. By 2021, 82% of all consumer traffic on the internet will be a result of video. So this is another upward trend. So we're basically moving further and further towards the future of almost all content on the internet being video, at least the stuff people are actually watching. And then this final point is just another selling point for why you should use video. Marketers who use video grew revenue 49% faster than non-video users. And if you think about compound growth, those numbers get pretty crazy after a few years. So the companies that are using video right now are kind of getting ahead of that curve, and they're doing quite well. Sorry, I don't know why this keeps happening, but we're going to fight through it. Yeah, question?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm always curious about, so video, you have to actually engage with the video to watch it. You have to like press play and watch it so that it knows, it tracks that you're watching the video. A photograph, like if you're on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, you're seeing lots and lots of photos without necessarily engaging in it, without liking or commenting or anything like that. So these statistics, you know, they sound good, but are they accurate as far as like exposure goes? Like, because I see a lot of videos that I pass up and don't watch, but I see a photo and it's obvious what it is within a second.
Sure.
So I'm just curious if there's any statistics about that type of stuff out there.
I don't have any handy necessarily, but what I will tell you is that everything you do is tracked on Facebook, including like momentary pauses. So if you're scrolling and a picture catches your attention and you stop, they know that, right? If you watch a video and you watch 3 seconds versus 10 seconds, like they know that stuff as well, right? So a big way that Facebook determines the success of a video is they actually see, and you can get this stat, which is a useful stat to look at, is how much of the video on average did people watch. A lot of times it's 10 or 15% because a lot of them just skipped it and then some watched the whole thing. But that percentage is a good indicator of did that video really resonate with that audience or not, right? So in terms of, I mean, the stats I was showing you, the engagement stuff, engagement is specifically the likes or the happy face or the ha-ha face, that kind of stuff. So those are easily measured, right? So what they're saying is if you had a picture versus a video, the video is going to get more of that kind of engagement, right? The other thing is that you don't necessarily have to click on it to play. A lot of video audio, it actually auto plays on Facebook. So about 80% of the views you get are from the video just automatically playing. So from that standpoint, you get, like Facebook measures 3-second video views. Don't ever look at that as all that meaningful because a lot of those videos auto played for 3 seconds and then they kept going, right? And that's not really that useful. So you have to, there's a flip side to all this, which is you can't really trust a lot of what Facebook says. And I'm not trying to say don't use it, it's scary or anything, but you got to keep in mind they're a business. There's not a ton of transparency. So some of these numbers and some of the stats you get feel a little bit kind of wishy-washy. And that's one in particular that I don't like is that 3-second view count, right? Because that's a little bit kind of off. It's not all that important in my mind. So I look at 10 seconds. So if you can get somebody to watch a video for 10 seconds, that means they were probably interested and you made a good video. So you can see both of those stats. Nope. Okay, technical difficulties. All right. So what I'm going to do now to move into how to make a video, we're going to spend the next 20 so minutes talking about this. And just to be clear, what I'm trying to teach you today is how to make a video with your own cell phone. Okay, so this is not something where you're going to have to get really fancy. Michael has much fancier equipment than I do. Obviously, you can graduate to that level, or you can hire somebody who has that kind of stuff. But what's working really well on social media is very simple, short, bust them out in 20-minute kind of videos, and you don't want to invest a ton of money when you're first starting on that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this short little video that I created, and this should demonstrate a little bit about how you can make better video using your actual phone. And there's no sound. Okay, maybe not. We're going to skip that. Sorry, tech's not working so well for me today. So anyway, what that was all about is just the idea that with under $300 of equipment, and I'm going to show you the equipment right here. So I have a backup. You don't have to actually see that video. That's how you prepare for this stuff, right? But this is under $300 worth of equipment that I use to make this video content. So let's just go ahead and switch over to that demo right now. So this is the stuff that we have. This isn't quite all of it, but this is most of our equipment. And what I want to show you is basically just a couple tips on how you set up a kind of low budget studio. So the first thing we have here are these light stands. So there's a couple factors when you're making video that are really important, and those are going to be proper lighting, clear sound, and then you want to obviously have really good content. So there's a few different ways to set up professional lighting when you're doing a video, but this is kind of my preferred method. So you're going to have, I got my tripod in use back there, but you're going to have your tripod right in the middle of these two lights. And the idea is you want to angle these lights in to light up your face as best as possible. So one of the problems you'll see in a lot of videos that don't turn out very well is that they have this kind of light in the room. It's overhead light, and then they don't do anything to light their faces, and so you get that kind of raccoon effect where their eyes are really dark. You know, they got shadows over their face, and it just doesn't look very nice. This will help you light your face properly and look a lot better. It's going to come out a lot clearer. The other thing you have to keep in mind with a cell phone is that those types of cameras, they're not really great at absorbing light, right? So they're very good cameras nowadays, but they're still not the best at absorbing light. That's why you would invest in a nicer camera, obviously. So by providing some extra light, you're going to get a better video. In terms of what these lights are, so if you want to invest in some of this stuff yourself, you can buy these kind of kits for about $100, $120 on Amazon. The only change that we made is that we added some LED light bulbs. So these are Cree light bulbs, and they're natural light. So this is basically the same spectrum as sunlight, so it's a much better type of light. The brand is Cree, if you want to write that down if you're looking to get these yourself. We went a step further, and we actually got the ones where you can adjust the brightness. So I don't actually use this all that much. You don't necessarily need to do this, but you know, this way you have a little bit of control over how much light you're using.
Is that part of the kit, or is that separate?
That was separate. So the kit was the 3 lights here. That's what you can get for about $100 or so. The light bulbs I bought at Home Depot, so I just bought those separately. It did come with light bulbs, but these are much brighter, and I just wanted to have a little more range to play with. And like I said, they're LED bulbs, so they'll basically last forever.
And the original light bulbs, aren't they yellowish? Is there a reason why you didn't go with your original light bulb?
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure, these are, I believe, 6,500 lumens, which is right at natural light. This is going to make you look the best on camera because it gives you the closest to sunlight. So that's another factor here, is that the reason you set up your own lights is you want to control the light in the room and make sure you have a good handle on it, but you can use natural light, right? So if you're a little more creative and you have like a big window on one side of the room, you just got to make sure you turn the overhead lights off because those are a different color, right? So if you blend them, it can look kind of weird. So what we do, the setup that I have is I actually have a small storage room in the basement at our office, and I've converted that into a video studio, and I turn off all the overhead lights anytime I shoot a video. Right, so you could at least see what that shot looked like. I know we didn't have the sound on it, but you could see that obviously it looked pretty natural lighting. But that was just these 3 lights. That was not the overhead lights being turned on.
And light adjustment, was that part of your kit, or you can buy that?
So what I did, so this part, the dimmer switch, right? This is something I added. You don't need this, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about it, but it just gives you a little bit more flexibility because depending on the skin tone of the person you're filming, you may want more or less light, so that just gives you an option at least. If you do decide to do that, you do have to buy a special kind of light bulb that can be dimmed, so those are a little bit more expensive. So that's an option. Now I want to mention this last light that's behind me here, and what this one is for is I have a nice piece of gray paper that I've taped to the wall in our studio, and it's actually backdrop paper, and specifically you can get all kinds of different colors. You can also get green, obviously, if you want to do a green screen video. And what you do is you put that behind you, and it gives you a nice backdrop. It makes you look a little bit better. It's nice, clean. There's no distractions or anything. But the reason I put this light behind me is that it eliminates the shadows from these two, and it gives you kind of a sense of depth. So you can kind of see in some of these videos, it looks like there's a little bit of space behind me, and you certainly don't see any shadows back there. And I also have kind of a little bit of this glowing effect behind my shoulders when I use that. So that's a little bit higher level tip or trick necessarily. You don't really need the third light, but I always thought that was kind of a cool effect, and it makes your videos look a lot nicer. So that's the setup you want to have on the lights. Now in terms of where you want to be, these generally you're going to want to have about between 6 and 8 feet apart. And like I said, you're going to have the tripod right in the middle. And if anything, the tripod's a little bit behind, maybe 6 inches behind the lights. Now that depends on how tall you are and all that kind of stuff, so just adjust it, but you obviously want that pretty much right between these. And then generally there's about 3 or 4 feet between me and the wall behind me. That seems to be about the right spot. So if you're going to set this up yourself, that's what I'd recommend doing. All right, so that's the lighting, right? So that's the first thing. And if you're going to use, if you don't want to spend money on equipment, the main thing to remember about lighting is just try to have the light coming straight onto your face. The closer you can get to that, the better you're going to look. So like I said, if you're using natural light, if you have a window at one side of the room, just make sure you're facing the window. You might even want to consider putting something white on the floor that'll kind of reflect some of that light back up at you. You just want to get as close as you can to having it coming straight at your face. And at a very minimum, even if you're not going to invest in the equipment, just keep that one tip in mind. That's going to go quite a long way for helping you out. And the second thing is sound, right? Now, I know I just said 85% of videos are played without the sound, but especially if you're going to use this elsewhere like YouTube, which I definitely recommend posting your videos in multiple places, you want to make sure you get good sound. And you'd be surprised how many people will just simply stop watching a video if the sound is kind of bad or if there's like a lot of noise in the background. So a really simple thing you can do to have really good quality sound is to buy one of these. So this is called a lapel mic or a lavalier mic. That's kind of the technical term. But if you search for a lapel microphone, you can find it that way. So L-A-P-E-L, right? And the reason for that is a lot of people would stick it on the lapel of their shirt or jacket, right? So what this does, it's about a $15 to $20 piece of equipment you can get on Amazon. You can get those tripods for about the same price, so it's about $40 you can spend on Amazon for just a tripod and a lapel mic, and that's going to go a long way on its own. This allows you to get just better audio. So especially with cell phones, the microphone in your phone is not good at picking up sound at a distance. Now if you were holding it right here, it's probably fine, but when you're more than even a foot away, the sound is not very good. So by using a lapel microphone, you're actually able to get a much better quality sound. The only catch is that you got to make sure there's not a lot of noise in the room, because this does pick up all of the sound, right? This isn't necessarily directional. It just picks up all the sound around it. Since my voice is the closest thing, it picks up my voice really well, but it will pick up background noise, so just keep that in mind. If you want to spend a little bit more money, you can get a shotgun microphone. You're spending probably a couple $100 at least in that case. That's going to be a little bit more targeted, but again, you don't want to invest that kind of money when you're first starting. Start small and kind of scale up to those kinds of things, right? And then the third point that I had on here is that you want to have good content. So I'm going to put these back over to the side. So obviously, content is really important here. I mean, content is what is in the video, and that's what I want to spend some more time talking about. So the reason I wanted to show you this little setup here is just that there are already a lot of people making videos on social media. So let me ask you this. Has anybody seen like a friend or somebody they know do like a live video on Facebook for their business? Anybody seen those? Yep, pretty much everybody's seen that, right? And a lot of those kind of my favorite example of just something where like they just kind of turn a camera on and just talk for like 10 minutes and you're like, I have no idea what's going on here. You watch it for 30 seconds and you're like, nope, that's fine. I did not really get much out of that. And I will give them credit because they are trying, right? A lot of people are not trying this stuff yet, so I'm not mocking them at all. I mean, that's good on them. But my point is that by taking a couple easy steps, you can get out ahead of them, right? So the people that are kind of just winging it, you can really do a lot better, right? So you can imagine, even if you go live, if you have some lights, your video is already going to look better, right? If you do some video than somebody that didn't. So that's where the content part of this comes in. So we want to make sure that the content you're creating and putting out there on social media is valuable and entertaining or interesting to the people seeing it. So we're going to talk a little bit about a little bit of strategy there. But the one first tip I want to give you on the content side of things, and this is where I'd really recommend starting, is just simply document what you're already doing, right? This to me didn't make a lot of sense a couple years ago, and now I do it all the time, and I really love doing it. So this is an example. I have Michael here recording this today. I was already going to present. Now I have a 2-hour video that I can cut into pieces and I can use on social media, right? So instead of spending a bunch of time trying to come up with some smart ideas and being really witty in my videos, I just document what I'm already doing. Yep.
Is it as simple as like on Thursdays I do a Thursday tip of the day for our business? Is it as simple as like sitting there and doing it in a video rather than just typing it up? I mean,
Yep.
It doesn't have, you don't have to like reinvent the wheel. It's just what you're kind of doing, but you want to make sure you're doing it in a video.
Absolutely. I mean, even a step further, which I think people might like even more, is if you're brainstorming that tip, record that conversation, right? So if you're sitting there with like your business partner, kind of, oh, what should the tip be about? You can make that into a 5-minute kind of behind the scenes video, and I bet that would do even better, right? Because people are really into the what's behind the scenes, like we're all good at putting on our public face. So when you show that stuff, that's always really exciting to people, right? So that's what I mean by documenting. So one of the most successful versions of this that I've seen, and I'm sure some of you have seen these too, is like, have any of you seen the videos of like the woodworking people? So they'll like spin the wood and then they'll carve into it and all that kind of stuff, right? I don't know who started doing that first, but I know several of those companies are doing it, and there's a bunch of those videos that have like over 1 million views, and literally all they did was record what they were already going to do that day, right? So there was nothing fancy about it. Now I will say a lot of times they're lit properly, they have a decent camera, you know, they do some editing on it, so they don't just throw it together, but it's just what they were doing already, right? So a lot of the types of things you have going on in your business, you can just simply document them as you go and turn that into interesting video content. Yeah.
Does who you use in your video matter? Have Facebook done any type of studies on, they want to see a young person, they want to see a more attractive person, they want to see a slim person, they want to see, or,
sure.
You know, is it that deep as far as who you use in your videos?
So there would be something to that, right? Depending on the audience, though. So it's not universally across Facebook, because the power of Facebook is you can choose who to target with your video, right? So like if your audience is 60-year-old women, they're going to have a different interest than 25-year-old guys, right? So that's what you want to think about, is who is going to see it, and then they might have some interest there. But what I tell a lot of business owners in particular, and like I said, we work with a lot of realtors, and realtors are already pretty public, you know, kind of salesy type people. They're comfortable with this stuff, but they still get nervous when it comes to getting on camera, right? And I try to tell everybody that, you know, the point is you control who sees the video, right? So it's not like a lot of people are going to see it. And the second thing is, a lot of those people, they're interested in you, right? So if they're interested in your business, a lot of small businesses, you are your business, right? Like in my business, it's me and Vanessa. I mean, we're the face of the company. So in a lot of ways, the branding is just us, right? And that's the case with a lot of small businesses. So even if you feel like, oh, well, my audience is, you know, 25-year-old guys, so if I had this beautiful woman on camera, maybe you get more attention. I guarantee if it's you and it's your business, you will do better than hiring some person to come and get on camera for you, right? Gotcha. Because people care about, yeah, you're going to talk about your business in a way that means a lot more. You have the behind-the-scenes knowledge, and we're all kind of getting sick, I think, of this kind of polished public persona nonsense, right? For many years, we've all been posting this. I post about my vacations. I post about the holidays. You don't post about when you got in a fight with your spouse, right? I mean, you don't see. Well, some people do, and that can. You probably don't want to be posting about that. But the point is, like, we all have these really polished social media-based lives now, and so when we're a little vulnerable, when it's us on camera, and maybe we don't look perfect, then people appreciate that much more, right? Now, you might think that conflicts with using things like lights, but that's actually something different. That's about the experience of watching the video, because it's easier to watch, and it's just more enjoyable if it's properly lit and if you have good microphone, right? The other side of it is, like, if we're more vulnerable and we do behind the scenes and all that, I think people are a lot more interested in that kind of stuff, right?
I noticed that Facebook has started to, if you're tagged in a picture and if it's sent to you, you don't like it, and you didn't authorize your release to be in that picture, they will send a notice for that individual to take it down or block it.
Sure.
I know the same thing applies to videos as far as in public places, as far as release forms that are required in general. How has Facebook responded in that respect to posting videos of unsuspecting individuals who have not authorized, and you know those prank type clips and things like that?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that? Have they addressed that the same way they have with photos?
Yeah, so you can flag a video if you find that yourself or your content has been used in it. So like if they took your song, that happens a lot. They'll take a song from a band and put it in. They don't have permission to use it. So those things can be flagged. Now I will say a lot of those kind of prank videos and stuff are completely fake. You know, I mean, like a lot of those prank things are just a total joke, right? So they have releases. Like those people have all signed off on that video being put out there. So if you're going to do something like that in public and you're going to have, you know, people kind of featured in the video, you might want to get releases for that stuff. I do believe, and this is, you know, talk to a lawyer about this, but I think this is what I understood, is that in Missouri, at least, you only have to have the permission of one of the people involved in the video. So as long as you are filming it and you know you're filming it, then technically other people can be in it. So again, talk to a lawyer about that. But outside of Missouri, those laws are different. So you probably, you know, you got to be careful. If you put anything online, you got to assume it's going to be seen in other places, right? So get releases from anybody that's clearly in the video. People that are in the background and stuff, you generally don't have to worry about, right? So unless they're actually being focused on in the camera, right? Yeah.
Could you do me a favor and just turn your umbrella up?
Oh, is it good? I'll just turn it off. Sorry. There we go. All right, so let's try to fly through these last couple clips so we can give everybody our slides a quick little break here. So we already talked about this. You know, the obvious idea was to get a photography backdrop, you know, something you can put on the wall that's a nice even color. If you don't get paper, just make sure that you use a wall that doesn't have any weird stains on it, you know. You'd be surprised how often that happens. You make a nice video and then there's like a red spot in the corner and people are like, what is that, right? So I'm just looking over here, I'm like, there's all kinds of marks on these walls, right? So just be careful about that. You can use a wall, but just look at what's on it. You can also just hang up a blanket that's a solid color. People do that with like a sheet all the time. That can work. You want to use natural light again, but avoid the shadows coming down over your face. And then the last thing, which we didn't talk about much here, is if you want to get out and you want to have a more interesting background, make sure that it has something to do with the video that you're shooting, right? So especially if you're going to have some sort of activity going on in the background, make sure that it has something to do with the topic. Otherwise, it's just a distraction. The noise-free, the sound stuff. I think I already covered all three of those, so we'll just go ahead and skip ahead. And then the video content. The one thing I do want to point out on here is you do want to keep it short unless you're doing a live video. Live video tends to work a little bit differently. First of all, Facebook promotes it even more aggressively. So if you're using video and you can do live, that's going to go, more viral, so to speak. The other thing is that people tend to watch them for longer. And I think that's mostly just curiosity right now because they're just different, And again, it's that thing about it's less polished, right? Like it's live. You don't know what's going to happen. Somebody might embarrass themselves or something interesting might happen, right? So I think that's a little more exciting to people. So if you do a live video, don't feel like you have to only do 1 minute. That's probably even too short. So there's a difference there. If you're doing a pre-recorded video, shoot for that 1 to 2 minute mark. If you're going live, you can do something a little bit longer. And then the last thing on here is if you are smart about it, you want to ask people to take an action. So what's something that they can do to help you out? So at the end of the video, you might want to ask them to share it. You might want to ask them to text you or call you if that's your call to action. It should have something to do with the video though. So I'll give you an example would be, let's say I'm a real estate agent and we have a client that she did a video talking about decluttering your home. Because a lot of people that start decluttering, they realize they have a bigger house than they need, and then they end up selling it a year or two later, right? So that's why it's a good idea to do that. So she has a video where she does 2 of her tips, and she has a guide with 10 tips. So she'll tell them the 2 tips in the beginning of the video, then she'll say, hey, if you want the remainder of those tips, text me at this phone number, and then she gets texts, and then she'll send them the rest of her guide, right? So that's a way to generate leads. And we'll talk about that strategy a little bit more in just a second here. So these are a couple ideas, what kind of videos can you make, what should be in them. So the first one is a how-to guide. That would be what I just gave you an example of. She gives you a couple tips on how to declutter your home. That can be a great idea. Another easy one is to interview a local professional who has something to do with your business but is not directly related. So again, using the real estate example, a lot of times people after they move into their new home, they might be looking to do some remodeling or some updating to that home. So having a contractor get on camera for you and giving people some tips on how to get started on that process, that's obviously very valuable to that audience, right? So thinking about that kind of stuff. And then the last one, and this is a generally pretty easy video to make as well, are testimonials. So anytime you can get a customer to talk about how great you are on camera, that's going to go a long way. So the best time to get it, so if you had to get a testimonial from a customer, when do you think the best time to get that video would be?
While the emotion's high.
Okay, so I had a couple of answers. I think they're basically the same thing, which is like right after you wowed them, right? So right after you delivered your service or you deliver whatever outcome your business has. So obviously if you're real estate agents, at the closing table, they're signing the documents, the process is done, they're about to get their keys to the house, that's a great time to get a testimonial video. If you can't do that, they will also still come in and do those for you. We've actually thought about doing like a happy hour and inviting all our customers to that, and then just pulling them out one at a time and having a camera in the other room and getting a quick little testimonial. So those are very, very valuable. If you can get even just a few testimonial videos, those will go a long way in advertising your business, because obviously someone else talking about how great you are is generally way more effective than you talking about how great you are, right? Those are not very exciting videos to see. And then the last part, what you're going to need to do here is a little bit of editing. A little bit of editing can go a long way. So a couple really simple things you can do. The very first thing I'd recommend, and you can do this on your phone, is please cut the beginning and end of your video. There's so many of these I've seen where the video starts with somebody reaching up and pushing play, right? And then doing the same thing to end it. and it's like it takes like 1 minute to get rid of that, right? And it just kind of looks sloppy. So at least cut the beginning and the end of the video. I like to use Filmora when I'm on the computer. It's a relatively affordable piece of video editing software. Tends to be very user-friendly for newbies. So when I first started, Filmora was really easy to get used to using. On the iPhone, you can use iMovie. And then there's, I think, something called Movie Maker on the Samsung phones as well, so you can use that. Now, I've found that editing video on my phone is more frustrating than anything, so I usually just copy it straight to my computer and I do my work there. A couple other things you can do to it is I would definitely add music, just a little bit of music, not too loud, underneath your voice. That helps keep people's attention. It makes the video much more exciting, especially when you're doing this kind of video shoot where you're just standing there in front of the camera talking. You definitely want to add some music to make it more exciting. Add a title. So I'm going to show you an example of a video, obviously probably without sound in a second, but you'll see in that one that I throw a title in there. I do a quick intro, I do a title, and then I do the rest of the video. That's a good way to catch people's attention. And then subtitles and other graphics. The more of that you can do, generally the better, without obviously going overboard. So you want to add a little bit of that. Couple other tips. You want to export your video in the right format. Generally, I'm going to export it in MP4. That's a pretty universal format that you can use. I really recommend, if you look over here to the side, so this is a square post, and this is more of a traditional outline post, right? So that's a standard video. On the left is a square video. I think you should almost do everything you ever post in square. And the reason for that is exactly what you see here. It's how much space it takes up on your phone. If you're using Instagram, almost everything on Instagram has always been square, right? So that makes sense there right off the bat. However, even on Facebook, that square video takes up a lot more space, and it makes it a lot more likely I'm going to stop and actually look at the video and engage with it, because it's going to catch my attention. So I definitely recommend square. Now, the way you do that, if you're going to film on your phone, because your phone doesn't necessarily record in square, right? So just keep everything in the middle 50% of the screen or so, right? So, and the way that really comes into play, and I'll just tell you this from experience, is I talk with my hands, right? And so when I'm on camera and I'm doing this, anything that I do out here is cut off, and that can look a little bit weird. Right, so I had to kind of teach myself to do all this kind of hand motions right in the middle, right? So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. But if you keep everything in the center of the screen, you'll be able to cut the sides off and turn it into a square video. And then the final thing is obviously just export it in high resolution. Facebook will automatically adjust the resolution for you if somebody has a slower internet connection. So if you start with higher resolution, you're going to get a better video as well. All right, so we're going to take a second to take a quick break now. The first thing I want to do before we take that break, though, is I want to show you a quick chatbot demo. So we're not going to talk a ton about this. Chatbots are a pretty new thing on Facebook. It's basically a pre-programmed conversation that your Messenger app can have with a customer. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to show everybody a demonstration of this. It's also a way to kind of get in touch with my Facebook page. So if you want to follow up, if you have questions after the presentation, you'll be able to ask them there. So what's going to happen right now is Vanessa's passing out a sheet of paper that actually has some instructions on how to do this. And where this is really cool is that you can use printed material to get people to interact with your business digitally. So this is actually an example of that. So you can start to think, signage, postcards, brochures, all that kind of stuff, you can now turn into a digital lead generator. And this is how it works. So what you're going to want to do to test this, and you can always unsubscribe, so don't worry. If you sign up, you just say stop, and then it won't ever send you anything again. But if you want to test this, you want to open up the Messenger app on your phone. So if you want to go ahead and do that, I'll give you a second. And then what you want to do is you want to find your profile. So you want to click on the Me. There's a couple of versions of this app. So I think this is the iPhone version we have on the screen here. But in the bottom right corner, you'll see a little Me, or it might be the top. Just see if you can find the little picture of yourself and click on that. It's going to take you to your profile. So once you click on Me, you should see this. So your name with it should have your actual picture on the inside of it there. And then if you click on your picture, it should take you to this second screen where it's either going to show you your own code or you can switch to scan code. So and we're going to take a break in a second. So if you're going, I have no idea what he's talking about, just come up and I'll show you. Okay, that's part of why we're going to take a quick break. But again, so push, find your profile where it says me, click on your own picture, and then click scan code at the top, right? Once you do that, you want to take that image on the piece of paper you just got and hold your phone over it and scan it with your camera. Do you have the screen where it's scanning now?
I have the non-code. I got stuff right here.
Yep, so just click scan code and now hover it over that and it'll scan. You gotta get the whole thing in though, so pull it back a little. You get the whole, there it is. Alright, so I hope a few people got that to work. You got it? Alright, good. So hopefully you can mess around with that over the break. So I just want to show that to you. It's a way for us to obviously give you a way of interacting with us and our business and asking questions. That's what that's all about. Feel free to ask any questions through that connection because now you are messaging my Facebook page, right? So that's what's going on there. It's also going to ask you if you want to get a weekly tip. We usually are going to be sending out a weekly tip about mostly Facebook marketing in general, so you can sign up for that on there. So what we're going to do now is the next part of the presentation, we're going to switch into actually demonstrating some Facebook ad strategies, and we're going to show you the ads manager. So I'm going to give you, let's say, 4 minutes. We'll take a really quick break. If you need to go grab another bottle of water, that'll give us about 50 minutes to cover all that. And if you have questions, you can ask those to me while we're taking that break. Okay? All right, we'll go ahead and get started again. Got some people working their way back in. That's all right. Okay, so what we're going to show you now is we're going to start talking about how to actually do a Facebook video ad. And so I want to give you a quick introduction to all this. So we talked about what an ad was versus organic content, and we mentioned obviously before that only 2 to 4% of your network is going to see your typical organic posts. And so that's why you want to advertise. You may want to even consider paying to show your posts to the people who have already liked your page, right? That's a little bit frustrating, obviously. If they liked your page, you think they would see your stuff, but this will help you make sure that they do, and that can go a long way, right? So just keep that in mind. So what exactly is a Facebook ad? I want to kind of show you what that looks like. So there's a few places that ads can appear. The first would be over here. This is actually your Facebook news feed. So it can show up, and it basically looks just like a normal post. The only difference is it says sponsored above it, and it's actually fairly small. So a lot of people don't. I've actually had people ask me, like, where are the ads on Facebook? I've never seen them. And they had seen thousands of them. They just hadn't noticed that they were sponsored, right? So that's how they look on there. You can also see them on the side over here. You can see them on Instagram, and then you can see them on what they call their audience network, which is all of the websites that have agreed to show Facebook's ads for them, right? So if you're on another website, like let's say you're reading an article on CNN, there's a good chance you're actually seeing ads that are being managed through Facebook. So a lot of the stuff that's put on Facebook is then also shown on those other websites. And then there's different formats. We're only going to be going over a couple of those formats today. There is a ton of stuff out there you can learn about how to advertise on Facebook. But there are quite a few different types of ads. So let me show you a couple of them really quickly here. So this would be an example of, this is actually an event promotion. So this is Nate Johnson. He's the incoming president of the Missouri Association of Realtors. And he was a speaker at an event that we're a sponsor for. So we helped make a couple videos to promote the event. And what you'll see is down here it says going. And that's where people can actually select whether or not they plan to come to your event. Right? So one thing we've had a lot of success with is creating videos, showing them to the kind of people we would like to come to our events, and then they RSVP through this kind of thing. This is the Instagram version of an ad as well. So obviously you can post on Instagram. You can do pictures, you can do videos as well. Instagram obviously looks a little bit different, so you probably want to think about these ads a little bit differently than the same ad you would show on Facebook. This is a mobile ad. So again, this is an event promotions. You can see down here that's the spot where they would tell you if they're coming or not. But it looks similar, but obviously on mobile it's a lot more narrow, right? Because this is something that shows up on your phone. And then this is a carousel ad. So you can see here there's actually multiple pictures. So this one, and then you can have I think up to 5 or 6. And what's cool about these carousel ads, they actually sometimes perform a lot better. And the reason is just that it gives people more to engage with, right? So if they're a little bit interested, then they have the series of pictures they can look through that gets them more interested. You can put a different headline on each picture, so that can kind of tell a story. So sometimes you can kind of move people along that way. That can be pretty useful. And then this is actually what you would call a lead ad. So I know we're flying through all this. I apologize. And I did have somebody ask if I'm going to share these slides. I will share them through the messenger or leave a business card with me and we'll email them to you so you can look back through this later. This is what's called a lead ad, though, and what's really cool about this is that a lot of times if you would run an ad online, the idea would be to then take people to what's called a landing page, right? So you have your ad, and hey, I'm so great, here's what you should look at. Then you take them to a landing page, which is a page that's about the exact same stuff. A lot of people would drive an ad to just their general website and kind of hope people find the right information. A landing page is very much customized to the ad, right? So if you say, hey, buy this red balloon, and then they come to a page on your website that's about red balloons, they're a lot more likely to buy it. If they come to your website and there's a ton of balloons and other party supplies, and they're going, I wanted the red balloon, what happened? And they just leave, right? This is a step beyond a landing page. So this lead ad actually stays on Facebook. So now there's not even the step where they have to click something and then come to your website. They're actually staying on Facebook. And then the second benefit is that their information, their contact information, is automatically filled in by Facebook. So you don't have to get them to type anything. They click it, their info's there, and they can submit it. So that's where lead ads can be pretty helpful. So let's talk about ad targeting. There are a lot of ways that you can target your ads on Facebook. Some of the more powerful ones are going to be demographics, interests, and then purchases and behavior. There are thousands, if not probably even millions of combinations of ways you can target people on Facebook. So we're obviously not going to go over those all today. What I would encourage you to do is to just experiment. So I'll show you where the audience manager is. You can get on there and kind of experiment with it yourself and try to figure out what the right combination of people is. But this is probably the biggest strength of Facebook, is the fact that you can choose who sees your ads. So even if you used to put, an ad during a TV show, and they'd say, oh, most of our viewers kind of fall into this general demographic, that was nice. Now I can say, I want this exact person. I want people that are, I'll just use myself. I want 29-year-old guys who have an interest in soccer and who live in St. Louis, and there's probably not that many at that point, right? So you can be extremely specific, and you can put your ad right in front of the person who you want to see it. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is just deciding who that ideal customer is. So you can test that too, right? So if you're going, I don't know who my ideal customer is, maybe you actually want to make a couple different ads and show them to a couple different, they're called ad sets, so different kinds of people that you're seeing. And then the second way that you can target ads, which is, in my mind, probably a lot more powerful, is to target your existing connections. So do most of you have like an email list of customers? Or you have access to your customer's email in some form or another? Okay. You can use that. You can take that list, upload it to Facebook, and then it will find those people based on their email address, or I think you can use phone numbers as well, and match their profiles to your ads. So if you have a few hundred people and you're like, oh man, I have trouble kind of maybe getting back in front of some people that I haven't talked to in a while, or I've done a bunch of events and I have all these emails, I'm not sure what to do with them. This is a really great way to target your ads, because now you're showing them to people who you already know have an interest in your business, right? And then you can also show ads to people who have liked your page, kind of a similar trick. All right, and then the next thing is that how do you pay for these? So we get people asking a lot of times, like, how much do Facebook ads cost? Well, the reality is that there's no real kind of firm rule. The ad costs are going to depend on who you're targeting. So if you're targeting, people that only make above $500,000 a year, they're more expensive to target. That's just the reality, right? If you're going to target people that live in Pakistan, for instance, that's very affordable. We actually kind of experimented with that at one point. You can get like thousands of impressions for like 10 cents, right? So there's a big range. You probably don't have any interest in targeting Pakistan. It's not really all that useful. But that was kind of an interesting experiment. And what we found is that for what we do on average, you can get about 1,000 impressions for $20. So that means that your ad will be put in front of 1,000 people one time. Or you could say, I want 500 people twice. Basically an impression just means it's shown one time, right? I think I saw a hand back there. Yeah.
What's this whole thing about boosting?
Okay, that's a good question. So boosting is essentially the really basic version of advertising on Facebook. It's too bad our sound's not working, because this little video I was going to show you was talking about boosting actually. But boosting is basically, I call it like advertising light. There's a lot of features that are not available. I think the only reason that boosting exists is because Facebook realized their ads manager is very complicated and it is very complex. It takes a little while to learn how to use it. So boosting is like 5% of what you could do with the ads manager, but therefore it's easier, right? So if you've ever tried it, you know it's like, hey, you should probably target these people and spend $20, and then it's going. So it is pretty simple. The problem is a lot of those types of targeting features aren't available there, and so that's why I usually tell people just do ads manager, basically ignore the boost feature. Yeah.
Well, what I get is one of my posts, I'll get a pop-up that'll say, oh, here you can boost this post.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it because I don't want to open up the can yet until I'm ready to handle it.
Sure. Yeah, so you'll get they'll basically say like, we think this would make a nice ad, right? Like you should boost this, and it almost looks like it's already an ad. I've had people freak out that
I don't want to go out, so I don't have that option to tell them, no, I don't want that one, I want this one.
Yeah, so that's where the ads manager is nice, because you can pick whatever post you want. You can also create ads that are not actual posts on your page, so they don't actually show up on your page, they're just an ad. So there's a lot of kind of options there.
Can I put an ad in a group?
You cannot. I don't think you can target groups with ads. However, you can target the people who are interested in those topics, right? So a lot of it is based on the pages they like, though, right? But yeah, it's all interest targeting. So if it's a group about farming, you can find people that are interested in farming. Yeah.
If you are managing Facebook for a couple of different businesses and they all want to do advertising, is there a way to put in multiple credit cards?
Yeah, you can have a different ad account for each business, right? So every single Facebook profile has an ad account associated with it, as long as you've set up at least one business page. So what you can do is have them put their credit card information into their account, and then they can add you as an admin on their account. And then you'll see it later. You have a drop down. It'll just have all the different ad accounts that you have permission to use. So that way you can use their different separate credit cards. All right, so and then the main point here is to just keep in mind that your costs are going to vary quite a bit. Yeah, one more question?
Yes. When I boost a post, I can almost count on a certain number of likes to that page. Is there a relationship to how much you spend on your boost or whatever to how many likes you get? I mean, is it worth it? How is it worth it? Is it worth it to get, spend $30 and get 20 likes, or when do you know that you're just spinning your wheels with that?
Well, so this is probably the main reason I tell people not to boost posts, is that a lot of people don't have an actual strategy behind that, and they'll have those kind of questions where it's like, well, I don't know, I got some likes, but does that mean anything? And so you really have to think of the whole process you want someone to go through. So when you're advertising, you don't just think about this ad, you think about what does this ad get them to do that gets them to the next thing, and then what does that thing do to get them to the next thing, right? So if, for instance, you have the kind of business that is very social and very appealing, let's say you sell drones or something, like the kind of thing that people like posting about, then maybe it is helpful to have lots of likes on your page. There's other businesses that'll say, like let's say you're a mechanic or something and it's not the most exciting type of content. Maybe you don't want them to like your page, you just want them to sign up for a coupon, right? So again, we don't have a ton of time to get into tons of specifics there, but that's kind of the problem with boosting, is the Facebook's like, this post seems cool, boost it, and the question is like, and then what? So I spend $30, like what else do I want, right? So when you're doing actual ads, that tends to work a lot better because you have a strategy, right? So that's what I'm going to transition to that real quick. We're going to kind of go through just one or two kind of strategy formats for when you're creating ads. So this first one is a lead generation strategy. So if you have the kind of business where you're like, I want to run some ads, I need leads next week, I just got to get out there and try to get some leads, this is a strategy that works well for that. And then I'll show you one that I actually tend to use a little bit more, which is a longer term approach. So what you would do here is first you want to understand a customer's problems. So what is it that you're addressing for them? What kind of problem are you solving? And then help them with that problem, right? So you want to give them some tips on how they can address that issue. So that's the second step, is create a solution. So the example I would use is, like I said earlier, we had the real estate agent who's doing decluttering, right? Because that's the kind of customer that she wants to work with. So she gave a couple tips on decluttering, and then what she did is she created a downloadable guide, so a PDF, something that they could download, with 10 total tips, so more than she had said in her video. And she said, hey, to download that, go ahead and click the link below and you'll get a copy of it, right? Now, so that takes you to, obviously creating a video that addresses the problem and then setting up the ad. This is the kind of strategy that you could probably generate leads using within just a couple weeks. Because the point is you're addressing a specific problem, you're then putting that in front of people who have that specific problem. So we were targeting people that had an interest in like simplistic living, clean homes, that kind of stuff, and we're also likely to move. That's a category you can target on Facebook, and I'll probably use her as an example later when I set up that ad. So that can be very effective. Now the downside to using this strategy is that you didn't develop much of a relationship with that person before you tried to get their contact information, which means there's a lot of follow-up necessary, right? Someone who wants a decluttering guide does not necessarily want to sell their home tomorrow, right? There might be a few that do, but a lot of those people are a year, maybe a couple years away from selling their home. So you have to remember you're going to get a wide range of people, and a lot of them you're going to have to spend a lot of time nurturing. So the flip side of that, the one that I actually like to use a little bit better, is to focus on building relationships using video. And you can do the same thing with blog posts, infographics, but video works really well here. Same idea, right? So the same idea. You want to understand your audience first. You want to figure out what their problems are. You want to figure out what their interests are. One of my favorite things when you're doing this stuff is you don't always have to talk about your business. We have another client we did some videos with. We recorded for about an hour. It was all really promotional. It was all about him. And then at the end, I'm like, hey, since we're here, I know you like to ride bikes. Like, what are some of your favorite trails around town? And he was just kind of just really just talking to me, but I was still recording it. And it was the best video we made that whole day, right? Because it wasn't about real estate. It was something else, right? So you want to look like a human. You have other interests. You have other topics you want to talk about. So that's what I like about this approach, is that it's very similar. You're going to still try to help them with their problems, but you're not going to ask them to opt into something right off the bat, right? So the way this would work is you actually create a series of videos. So my example is that I try to put out at least one, if not two, 1-minute marketing tips per week, right? So marketing is one of those categories that you could talk about forever, and people are always interested in it because there's always new stuff to talk about in marketing, which is really fun. So I have kind of this regular series I put out, and what I'm doing is I'm tracking the people that watch the first video, right? So that's what's different about this approach, is that instead of saying, hey, here's a video, now download my thing, try to get their contact information, what I'm saying is, hey, here's a video, I hope you like it, but I'm figuring out who likes it, right? And I don't mean literally clicking the like button, I mean the people that watch the video. So that's a newer feature on Facebook, is you can create a list of people based on how much of a video they've watched, right? So I actually have a list right now of, I think it's gotten up to 400 people that have watched 75% or more of a specific video, right? So that is a pretty strong list. That's 400 people that have a pretty decent interest in these topics. And then what I do is I show more videos to those people, right? Now, what that does, this is really more of a branding strategy. So we've been using this for a few months now, and we have gradually established ourselves as kind of the go-to real estate marketing firm in St. Louis because we're staying in front of the same people, right? The more people see you, the more familiar they become with you, they automatically like and trust you more. So there's a lot of psychology behind this, but just simply being seen on a regular basis makes people know, like, and trust you, right? You can obviously screw that up if you're a total jerk when you call them eventually, so don't be a jerk, right? But you can win a lot of influence by just being in front of people. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So the idea would be to then promote your video series to your target audience, make sure that they're seeing several videos, and then you do an opt-in ad. So that's when you then ask for their contact information. So I like to do a lot of advertising that's very kind of, I would say almost hands-off, where it's like, hey, I made this cool thing for you, here it is. And then not, you should sign up for my stuff, by the way, right? Like, I don't really like doing that, so it kind of makes me uncomfortable. So I use this a lot. And then the next step, when you want them to opt in, when you want them to turn, kind of turn a corner and become a likely customer for you, what I recommend doing are things that are, again, not too promotional. So one of the ads you can run is called a messenger ad, which means if they click the button, it opens a conversation with your business page, right? So it's not opting into something necessarily, but once they message you once, you then have permission to message them in the future. So it's kind of like signing up for your email, but people don't really realize that yet. So what I'll do a lot of times if they've seen a few videos is then I'll show them an ad that says, hey, you've seen some marketing videos, what kind of questions do you have? Click on the button and ask me directly, and then I start a conversation, right? So that can turn them into business. It also means they're on my list and I can message them later. Another one that works really well for us is events. So I don't know if any of you hold your own events currently, but if you use events, I mean, these are very effective right now. Event marketing is growing very quickly. A lot of it is because I think people are, they're getting so addicted to social media that on the flip side, we kind of want to get out and see each other more. So people are actually coming to events a little bit more often. So giving them an option to come to one of your events is also pretty powerful there. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually do a quick demo. We got about 25 minutes left, so I'm going to try to show you how to use the actual ad manager. Before I do, these are just the 3 steps that you go through when you set up an ad on Facebook. The first is you choose your objective, all right? And again, I'm going to demo this in a second, so don't feel like you necessarily have to write all this down. But the objective is basically what is the purpose of the entire campaign. So are you trying to get link clicks? Are you trying to get video views? Do you want a whole bunch of people to see the ad? Do you want RSVPs to your event? So you have to decide that first. The second thing is where you choose your audience. That's probably the most exciting or interesting part of this, is being able to be really specific about who sees it. So that's where we'll spend most of our time here in the demo. And then the third thing is designing the ad. So obviously ad design is an incredibly complex thing. There's a ton of psychology and copywriting and all that kind of stuff that goes into it. We could do an entire week worth of training just on how to write good copy. So we're not going to cover a ton of that today, but I will show you how to set up, in particular, the video ad. So that's the particular ad we're going to demonstrate today. But you can also use images, carousel ads, lead ads, etc. All right, so now what I'm going to do is switch over. So I know we're not going to get the sound on this, but I'm just going to play the first few seconds just to kind of give you an idea of, in particular, that one intro thing I wanted you to see. Yeah, this is not as good without the sound. It's a bummer. Yeah, so that's what I meant about that title intro. It kind of grabs your attention, right? And then the rest of it is just me talking to the camera. It's about exactly 60 seconds long. It gives people 2 reasons not to boost their posts, which we talked about earlier today. And that's it. And I don't try to promote anything else. I don't ask for them to sign up for anything. I don't ask for their email. I just leave it at that. So we got about 25 minutes left, and so I'm going to switch over to doing the demo now. So as we do this, can everybody see this well enough, or would you like us to turn one of the lights off?
Lights off.
Okay, go ahead and turn it off. Vanessa, can you turn the light off? You got it? Okay. So this is where you want to start, is in the news feed. And again, I want to remind you that you do have to have, can you grab my charger out of there? You do have to have a business page to have access to Ads Manager. So if you're in your home screen and you're really confused about where your Ads Manager tab is, it's because you don't have a business page, right? So what you want to do is look on the left side of the screen, and you're going to come down to this button here, which says Ads Manager, which is right there. Click on that to go ahead and open it up. Thanks. Okay, so I know we had somebody asking a question earlier about what if you have multiple businesses you're working with. So that is going to be up here in this left top corner. So this is the actual ad account that you're in. And you can see that we have quite a few that we currently have access to. So this usually the one at the very bottom is your personal one. And so that's the one I'm going to go into right now. So if you are working with multiple companies, that's how you can access their different accounts. And so this is essentially the advertising home screen, so to speak. So you're going to have a few things you can look at. The first is your account overview, which is basically a summary of all the different campaigns you're running. We have so many miscellaneous campaigns that that's not all that useful because we want to see the individual campaign. And so this next tab is each of the actual campaigns we have running. And so what I'll do is I'll just show you, let's do this one. So if you click on it, what it does is it then takes you to the next step, which is your ad sets. And then finally, if you click on one of those, it'll show you the ads within that ad set. And so that video that I mentioned earlier is right here. One other thing I'll show you on this screen is you can look at, there's all the stuff you can look at within it. You can look at your charts. This will show you, in this case, how many video views I'm getting each day. That's the top line. The bottom line is how much each of those views is costing me. So you can keep an eye on that. Obviously, as your campaign starts to lose some steam, your prices will go up and your views will go down, and that's when you know to maybe turn that one off. And then the only other thing I'm going to show here is how to preview what the ad looks like. And this is where you can open it up and see all the people who have liked it, which is kind of nice. So you do the preview, and then the next step you want to take is click this little top right button and go to Facebook post with comments. This is something that I think is more just kind of neat rather than anything else. So what you can see here is if you come down and click on the number of people reached, it's going to give you a whole bunch of data about your video. And the nice thing about this is this shows you not just the advertising results, but also the organic results of that video. So in this case, like, it's been watched 2,933 times. We have over 1,400 10-second views on it. And then the minutes viewed is obviously over 1,100. So that's a lot of, it's only a 1-minute video, so that's a lot of people that watched the majority of it. So that's just where you can get some stats. The one other thing, oh, sorry, wrong button. The one other thing I want to show you, and this is actually pretty useful. If someone likes your post, you can invite them to like your page. So if you click on the people that liked it, you can see these boxes here. Now I've already invited all these people because this video is a couple weeks old now. But all of these people liked this video, and then I was able to invite them to like the page. So that goes for anything you ever post on your business page. If anybody does like or love or put the little haha or whatever, you can invite them to like the page as well. So that's where you access that. Okay, so we're going to try to spend the rest of our time doing is actually just showing you the actual ad production process. So when you're back in this main screen, you want to click on this button right here. It says Create. And this is going to start your ad design. Okay, there are a lot of different paths you can go down from here. All right, so we're only showing you one today. This is obviously meant to be kind of just an introduction, but there's obviously a whole bunch of different things that you can try. So the couple that I want to just tell you about while we're here, lead generation is the one we're going to, or sorry, that's for lead ads. We're not doing that one. That was from another day. We did a demo on that one. But lead generation is where you'd find those lead ads that I mentioned earlier. Video views is the one we're going to talk about today. Engagement is if you want people to engage with your ad, like it, that kind of stuff. Reach is if you want to get just as many people as possible to see it, etc. And then traffic is the last one I'll mention, which is if you want to get people to your website in particular. So if you want to advertise your web page and you want to drive people to it, you'd pick traffic. So we're going to go with video views because that's what we're talking about right now. And then you can go ahead and name your campaign. So for the sake of this demo, we're going to call it the declutter guide, and then the leads that you're getting from those. So you usually want to use something to separate the different topics. Now, for most of you, you're probably not going to need to be too careful about your naming process, but if you have a lot of campaigns, this can get very confusing. I'll tell you from firsthand experience. Please make sure, especially if you're doing this for somebody, if you have customers or something, make sure you kind of separate them all out by creating different names for each. And then you click Continue. All right, so this is when we get into, in my opinion, the fun stuff. So this is the ad set level. So the ad set level within your campaign is where you decide who's going to see the ads. This is where you define the audience, all right? So we have a lot of different things that we can utilize here. And the first thing that we can select is the geographic area, right? So for most of you, I would assume that you're probably advertising to people in the St. Louis area. And there's probably maybe a few of you are advertising outside of that, but we're going to use that as our example today. There are a couple different ways that you can do this. The first one I'll show you, which is my favorite way, is to actually target based on a specific address. So we're just going to use our work address. Oh, there it is. All right. Now, if you pick an address, the cool thing about this way of targeting is that you can set a radius around that address. So you can decide how many miles within my physical address I want to advertise to, right? So if you have a store, you can see how this can be pretty useful. And what's pretty cool here is you can actually go all the way down to 1 mile. So if you can see in this the image of the actual map, that's a pretty specific area, right? So that's a 2-mile across circle. And in this case, I'm kind of targeting most of the downtown St. Louis area. So you can pick any address you want. Another way that you can do your targeting is you can actually drop a pin. So you can say, hey, I want people that live specifically right around this location. And then you have the same ability. You can do down to a 1 mile radius as well if you decide to drop a pin, right? So you can get really, really specific there. So those are two examples. There's obviously
all Facebook users who live in that area?
Yeah, so what it's going to, in terms of who it's going to pick up, you can do everyone in that location. So like you said, that would be all Facebook users in that area, but you can be more specific if you want to. The other options are people who live in that area, people who are recently in that area, but they're not anymore, which that one I don't use very often, and then people traveling in that location, right? So like if you're a real estate agent that specializes in relocation, maybe you want to show an ad to people that are currently traveling in St. Louis because some of them are probably here because they're considering moving, right? Not obviously all of them, but you can target from there. So there's some different ways to do it. A lot of times I just leave it at everyone. And if this is a real estate agent, we probably want to increase this unless that's, if there's specific areas downtown, then that was fine, but we're going to bump that out to 31 miles just for the demonstration. So, all right, so now we're down to St. Louis, and over here on the right, you're going to see what's called your potential reach, which is how many people might see this ad if I don't change anything else, and that's 1.8 million. So we don't want to show an ad to 1.8 million people. That would be very expensive. When we come down a little bit further, we can decide how old we want these people to be. So in her case, this declutter guide is probably not very useful to an 18-year-old living in their parents' basement. Maybe their parents would feel it would be useful, but they're not buying a house or selling a house, right? So 45, we'll start there, and we'll go to 65 plus. So now we have only people over 45. You can see that dropped to 700,000 over here. The next thing we want to look at is this detailed targeting. Now, this is the area where you can kind of play the most and experiment the most. This is where there's just literally tens of thousands of different categories that you can target. So from our example, people that are interested in certain types of things, this is one we wanted to target, was simple living. So people that might be interested in a decluttering guide might be interested in simple living, right? So that's just a guess. We don't know if that's going to be the best possible audience, but that's what we want to target. So what we've got now is we've got an audience of 10,000 people. So that's pretty good. That's a fairly targeted audience. I usually try to get down to under 5,000 before I'll start running an ad. So what we can do is we can come down here and click on narrow audience. And what that's going to allow us to do is to now say, this is now an and statement. So now this is, I want people that are interested in simple living and whatever the other thing is that we pick. So there's a couple categories that real estate agents like to target. One of them is people who are likely to move. And you can see now we're down to under 1,000. So then maybe that's a little bit too broad. We can add a couple other categories to widen it out a little bit. Let me try this one. First-time home buyer. So that's also people that are interested in homes. Okay, so this gives us an audience of 1,200 people. That's not bad. Anything between 1,000 and 5,000 is probably a decent starting point. So just to review, and this is really the power of Facebook, and you obviously have to customize this to your own business, but just to review what we've done so far, is we have anybody who's within 31 miles of our office. They're over the age of 45. And this is targeted at both men and women, but you can select one or the other. And then we are targeting, in addition to people over 45, people with an interest in simple living, as well as people who are either likely to move or likely to be a first-time home buyer. So you can see, like that's why I'm excited. I like Facebook so much, is that's very, very targeted, right? Like we have a very specific person in mind here. But I will say that the catch is that we don't know for sure, right? There's not a lot of transparency. Facebook's not going to actually tell me who these people are by name or anything. That they're not allowed to do that for data privacy reasons. So it might not work. And so that's the point, is you want to create different kinds of audiences and test them, right? So this is just the first one. In our case, we'd probably go back and make at least 3 to 5 other audiences and use other kinds of targeting to pick those people out. All right, so that's how you set those. One other thing I'll mention while we're here is you can also exclude people. So this was an and statement. If you use exclude, what it does is it says, okay, I want people with simple living, but I don't want the people who are likely to move, right? So just keep that in mind. If you exclude, you take this audience and you cut a piece out of it. If you do the narrow the audience, then you're just doing whoever's in the overlap, so whoever happens to be in both categories. Another button down here that can be useful is add a connection type, and this allows you to select people who have a connection to your business page of some kind. So either people who like your page, one that is very powerful is the friend likes your page. They have friends. They might also be interested. That can be a really great audience to target. There's other stuff, obviously people that responded to previous events, things like that. But the friends of the people that like your page, if you're taking notes, like that's one of the more powerful audiences that you can use. Next thing you have is placements. This is where your ad is going to show. So it's either do you want it on Facebook, do you want it on Instagram? If you leave it at automatic, it'll just put it wherever it can for you. But you can take a step and do edit placements, and that's going to allow you to select which ones you want. So in this case right now, it's going to show up on all these places that are checked. So we could go through and eliminate some of those if we don't want our ad to show up there. So one example would be if you don't want your ad to show up on other websites, you'd want to deselect the audience network boxes. So for the sake of the demonstration, we're going to leave that at automatic. Now we have our budget. Budgeting, this is obviously completely up to you how much money you want to spend. It always defaults to $20 a day. That can get expensive quickly, especially if you're running multiple campaigns. So this can be brought all the way down to as much as $1 a day. So that's another thing that's pretty cool about Facebook is like that's obviously really, really cheap. Now, not many people are going to see your ad if you only spend $1, right? But if you want to just kind of play around and learn Facebook advertising, that is nice because you can do some experiments and you can learn from that. For a lot of our customers, we're starting with $5 a day, and if something works, we then increase that amount gradually. So that's another quick tip. If you start at a low number, $5 or something around there, do not increase that to like 50 or 100 right off the bat, right? Because everything on Facebook is an algorithm and it's all learning. And if you make changes too fast, it screws up that algorithm, right? So if you started at $5 a day and you want to increase it, maybe bump it to 10, give it a couple days, then bump it to 20, and then bump it to 50 eventually, right? So don't put it all in right off the bat. So we're going to leave it at $1 a day, something simple. I'm not going to talk about all these, but optimization for ad delivery. Since we selected video views as our objective, that means that Facebook is going to try to get us as many views as possible. And the nice thing about selecting video views is that it tries to get you 10-second video views. So I know I mentioned earlier, anybody that watches for 3 seconds, they count as a video view. 3 seconds is not very valuable, so we want to bid for 10 seconds. If they spend at least 10 seconds, there's a good chance they had some interest, so we want to really encourage that. So that's why we use this video views target. So that's what Facebook's going to try to do for us. You can put a bid cap in. There's a whole bunch of advanced stuff. I'm not going to talk about it. I usually leave all of this as is, so when you first start advertising, don't mess with that stuff. And then the last step, which can be both the most exciting and frustrating, is creating your ad, right? So let's go ahead and switch to our Connect Marketing page. So the first thing you'll see here is which page is going to show the ad. You can give it a name, so we'll call it the Declutter Video. And the second part is your Instagram account. So if you have an Instagram account, you can go ahead and select it there, and then that ad will show up on both Facebook and Instagram for you. The next thing is the format. So generally you're going to have a video pre-produced, but if you don't have a video, this can be kind of a cool alternative, which is creating a slideshow. So if you have up to 10 images, you can put them in here, and Facebook will kind of turn it into a slideshow, and I think they'll add some music and stuff like that for you. So that's an easy way to get things started, but we have our own video in this case, so we want to select single video. Okay, so the next one is to actually upload the video. I'm just going to browse the library because I actually have it in here already and select it, so we don't have to wait for it to upload. But if you do have it on your computer, obviously you could go in and select it there, and then it'll upload it. And this is where I know we had somebody asking about the subtitles earlier. This is where you're going to see an option. If you've never made subtitles for the video, there's going to be a button right where the Save to Video is that says Add Subtitles. I already did add them, so I have to click Edit instead. And what you see here is that Facebook actually auto-generates your subtitles, which is pretty nice, right? So you don't have to go through and type out your own words. Unfortunately, it doesn't do a perfect job, right? So even though it does create your subtitles for you, a lot of them are misspelled, or you'll find like some pretty inappropriate words in there every now and then. So please look it over and edit it, right? Especially if you're doing a 1-minute video, it's not that hard to edit. So usually in a 1-minute video, there's like 5-6 things I have to change. And then once you're done, you hit save to video. And obviously now all of the words she says will be automatically subtitled when the video is shown. The next thing you're going to do is add the text to your ad. So what you'll see here on the right, or right over here where the video is, that's a preview of the advertisement. So everything that you change is going to show up there. And so we want to do something. I'm not going to get really into copywriting today, but the way you word your ads is very important. What I like to do is generally, try to talk to the specific pain point that they're having. So, So you might want to say something like, are you trying to declutter your home? I'm just going to ignore my typos, so we can keep moving. Are you trying to declutter your home? It doesn't have to be hard. I dealt with the same thing. And then I would add a few more lines, right? But the idea here is if someone is, we already targeted our ad pretty intelligently, so we should know that some of the people in that ad audience are going to be interested in decluttering. So what we want to do is we want to get straight to the point. Are you trying to declutter your home? Well, if I'm not, then I'm probably going to skip the ad. That's actually a good thing. You don't want the people who aren't interested to be in your funnel because that's not useful. If they are trying to declutter their home and they see this, they're more likely to stop and be interested, right? Obviously, I would add a few more lines. We're just running low on time, but I would add a few more lines explaining what's in the video and say like, hey, I want to give you some tips. Please check out my video to learn some of the things I did to declutter my home. Then below here, so the next thing you can do if you want is you can drive people to your website. If you decide to do that, you're going to get the headline and newsfeed link description options. And this is where you'd want to do something like, put brackets. You've probably seen this style before. This seems to work pretty well. Free guide, declutter your home in 10 steps. And now they know if they click on the link there, they're going to be taken to a website to declutter their home. We'll just put in a fake link for now. Okay, so that's pretty much how you create the ad, right? And then you can decide what kind of button you want to have below it. So you can see over here now that text is below the video, and it has a Learn More button. You can also change that. So if you have a guide, you probably want to change it to Download, because that's what they're going to be doing, is they're going to be downloading it. And that's how you get your ad set up. So couple last things I'll just show you really quickly. You can scroll through, and this is going to show you a preview of what it looks like on all the different places it's going to go. So the first one was mobile, then it was desktop. This is what it looks like inside of an instant article. There's a couple of these that don't always show up, and then it would also show you Instagram as well. This is what the video looks like when you open it on a desktop, right? So going back, the one thing I did want to just kind of mention here is that if you look at the mobile version, you can see that because it's a square video, it actually ends up being taller, and therefore it takes up more space on your phone. So if you look at this, you can imagine that entire thing, if somebody's scrolling through on Facebook on their phone, basically fills up their phone, right? And that's what you want because that's going to hold their attention a little bit better. All right, so you've set up your ad, you have your ad set prepared, and the last thing you need to do is go ahead and click Confirm down here. Uh-huh.
When it fills up the phone, doesn't it stretch the image so the person looks a lot better?
Nope, it'll be just like it looked there. So it doesn't stretch it or adjust it at all. It's just because if you think about the video's width is what defines how much space it can take vertically, right? So if you have a video that's traditionally laid out that's a 16 by 9, then it can only be so wide. So that means it's not very tall, right? A square, which is more narrow, is going to actually end up being taller because of that, right? So yeah, I know it's a little bit hard to understand without seeing it, but
Well, you just turn the phone.
You can do vertical video as well. Yep. So, but it's actually Facebook's better optimized for square, and I think it's probably because Instagram is optimized for square. So you'll probably get better results with square versus vertical. Yeah. Okay, so now we have our ad uploaded. I actually did this demo the other day and then forgot to turn the ad off, and it started running, and people started liking it. I was like, oh, that's awesome. We actually got some likes. So I got to remember to turn it off this time. But now you have it done. So it's going to be in review, and Facebook has to approve it, right? So it does sometimes take a little time, but a lot of times your ads get approved like almost instantly. So just keep an eye out for that. If you put something up, it used to be it'd take days to get approved. Now it's almost automatic. So as long as you didn't curse in your video or do anything too crazy, and actually I don't even know if cursing is a thing they flag you for. But as long as you weren't racist or did anything really terrible, your video will get approved, and it'll get approved pretty quickly. So we're pretty much wrapped up now. I just want to let you know one other thing is that I have noticed sometimes up here it says review and publish. And this is basically something that you have to double check every time you do something new. If you've made any updates to your ads, sometimes you actually have to click on that blue button and click publish to make sure that the updates actually happen. That's a relatively new feature, and I'm not entirely sure why they made that change, but I think it allows people to do more batching. So if they had like a bunch of updates, they could do them all and then hit that button once. But just make sure you do that, because sometimes your ads actually are not updated. Okay, so now I know that was like a super fast crash course. I know that was probably pretty overwhelming. So we are going to be sharing our slides. If you do want the slide, if you either opted into the Facebook Messenger, or if you didn't do that, please come up to me afterwards and give me your email or give me your business card, and I'll make sure you get a copy of the slides. We will also probably be doing a demonstration video of the stuff we just went through, a little bit slower, maybe a little bit more in depth, because we'll have a little bit more time. I can also share that with you. Okay? All right, so it's 2 o'clock. I'm officially out of time. I think they have an event in here in 5 minutes. So if you do have any questions, if you want to hang around, I will come to the back corner. Just feel free to come over there and talk to me, and bring me your email if you want a copy of the slides. All right, well, thanks for being with us today.